Really. That's very loud indeed. Little quieter, please. Thanks for coming out. I'm not sure if I approve of the fact that you're up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, even though I do appreciate that you came out to listen to me waffle on. And I hope I can reward your early rising diligence. But I would suggest you have a drink at the bar because it's there, and I'll probably sound a lot better after you've had one of these things. The story here is that in previous years, we've done talks at GDC where we have served alcohol ourselves in a highly illegal and probably completely improper manner that would be likely to get us arrested or kicked out or whatnot. This year I decided not to because it was 9 a.m. on a Saturday, but Megan, in compensation for putting me on at this ungodly hour, decided that she would have a Bloody Mary bar officially put on by GDC. So thank you, GDC. I think a round of applause for Megan for being so kind. All right, so we're going to do a few things today. It's still rumbling and really loud. I guess I'll show you an agenda. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about social games and what annoys me about this terminology. There are a couple of games that we've had out for a while that I'd like to review metrics for. We do this a lot, so you're going to see a lot of data in this presentation. If you're not interested in numbers and data, you might want to go and find a nice quiet corner somewhere else or listen to someone else's rambling presentation. So I'm going to talk about Pods, Pirates, and World a little bit. There's some things that we've learned in the last year and have tried to apply some sort of principles of how you develop games and products that I think are worthwhile talking about. So I'm going to dig into that a bit. And then the sort of meat of the sandwich is that we have been making Facebook games. Given the subject matter of this talk, I assume you guys are interested in those games and how they have been doing, sort of how we've been making them. So I'm going to run down the 4 games. Is it 4? No, it's 5. Amazing games that we have some sort of information about, including a few numbers, and then talk about some sort of general learning from that. I'm then going to waffle and perambulate, talk about the prospects, way I see it about the Facebook platform in general, and then go even further out on a limb and talk a little bit about sort of social games and some of their other implications. I promise that won't be half an hour of listening to me waddle on about interesting philosophical debates. We have 2 special guests today. We have David Kay from Meteor Games and Kurt Brereton from Zip Zap Play. And these guys have followed, dare I say it, a somewhat similar path to Three Rings in that we were all making crazy, innovative, out on a limb, madhouse, expensive-ish, innovative, I said innovative twice already, products with destination sites in mind or 3D MMOs, and then did what they call in the trade a pivot to Facebook in the last year. And so these 2 guys have generously offered to come up and give us 5 minutes view on their experience. So hopefully that's, I'm sure, going to be very helpful for everyone. And then we're just going to finish with questions. 3 of us will answer anything. Probably there will be plenty of time for questions because usually what I do is blaze through my slides and talk very fast. So I will try and talk a little slower because it is early in the morning. I'm tempted, who wants the ambient music back on again? We like the ambient music. We like the ambient music. Okay, we'll try and put the ambient music back on again if I can get iTunes to come back up again, and not calendar, which is not what I want. I don't use the calendar. There's nothing on the calendar. This is not my calendar because this week has looked nothing like that. It has looked very, very different from that. In fact, it's been kind of crazy, actually. We have enough of music for airports for now. We'll have some Boards of Canada to lean us into to the morning. This is Boards of Canada live, very, very rare recording of a beautiful place in the country is the name of the tune. And I guess that's what a lot of us are kind of looking for here when we are looking at Facebook. We're looking for the blue ocean. We're looking for somewhere wonderful where our games can prosper. We can perhaps be free of the shackles of distribution and other kinds of limitations of the games industry, reach new audiences, that kind of thing. So my first slide was about the whose idea was it to have a presentation at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. But the second slide is people talk about social games. This, frankly, annoys the shit out of me because social games, in the definition that's used commonly, i.e. games on a social network like Facebook, are really not very social. They are generally single-player games in terms of the core game dynamics with sort of asynchronous message passing between players. So they use the idea that your friends are playing the game and concepts around that to reinforce your own play style. But you're not actually chatting with anyone. You're not really, I mean, if we think about socializing, we don't think about sort of passing notes under the door of each other's apartment. We think about like knocking on the door and going, hey, what's up? Let's hang out. And so as someone who spent 8.5 years at Three Rings making very social games, and a long time before that making text muds where, again, people hang out and chat, I find it very odd that now I'm sort of repositioning my company as a social games company. And as I say, I find this upsetting. The second concept that I think is weird is it's not clear that game is an entirely appropriate moniker for many of the experiences that have been very successful on social networks. I'm not trying to be pejorative here. There's a lot of game developers who want to moan all the time, and I'm sure you've heard or enjoyed the conversations here about how, oh, these aren't really games. And certainly we had a lot of painful transition time where we were talking about how we make good games for social networks, and many of my guys who are games players and game makers at their very heart, they began to say, like, this isn't a game that we're talking about now. We just crossed that line into something else. And so, what you might call a lot of what has been successful so far on social networks are really viral, because that's where the asynchronous message passing comes in, and generally the kind of motivational structure for the game is really about getting your friends involved, bringing new people in, and keeping up the retention loop of the game by having your social network connected to it. Distractions. And again, I'm not necessarily trying to be pejorative here. I mean, distractions are fine, right? And I'm okay with the idea that to make a lot of money, I make some, distractions. But I think it's indicative of a kind of state shift that you have to do as a game developer to really participate in this space as it stands now. And we'll talk a bit later about how that might change. But as I say, I mean, the types of games we're seeing right now, unkindly, I think, used commonly to regard the sort of Mafia Wars, X-Wars types game, might be brought to you by our friend B.F. Skinner. So the good old rat in the box pressing the button. And I guess, again, that sounds kind of pejorative, but does it really matter? Are we okay with that? We can make a lot of money in a short period of time by making these games. Is it all right to build a Skinner box? Anyway, this is no time for moral prognostications, and in about 40 minutes we'll have some of those. So, Three Rings, I don't want to preach to the choir here. I mean, you can read the slide. This tells you more or less the history of the company. Who knows something about Three Rings? I don't need to explain too much. Yeah, most of you go. About half of you don't. Okay. So we started by making Puzzle Pirates, casual MMO. We've made a number of other products that have been successful or not successful. We raised some money. We spent a lot of money, but not as much as many of our competitors. And we are now about a 32-person company and profitable again, which is nice. And I'm very excited about this year. Last year was kind of brutal. So this year is looking very exciting for lots of reasons. So the first bit of stuff I'm going to run through, Puzzle Pirates is, as I say, our first game. I think most years when I get a chance, I run through some of our metrics, and you can kind of see how that has changed over the last few years. So this is our user population. This is not a happy graph for me. However, you will notice that the red line, which is our active customers and our kind of core player base, is remarkably stable in a face of a general decline in the overall active player population. By the way, players are not unique visitors to the website or anything like that. We have millions of those. These are people who are actually engaged with the game in a real and serious way. But you can see our problem, which is that we have trouble acquiring new players. This is our biggest business issue. We're good at making things and we're bad at getting people to play them. again, this is one of the reasons we're excited about social networks. This is our revenue graph. I love putting these up on site GDC. The slides are going to be up on my website, which is The Flogging Will Continue. And so you don't need to sort of diligently document everything or photograph everything, although you can if you like. The interesting thing about this graph is that although we've seen some bumps in average revenue per paying user, so that's the ARPU, and the thing there is that cliff on the green line is the end of the world, basically. So I'm not sure that was entirely our fault and probably had more to do with the collapse of Western civilization. However, we've clawed our way back up from there, which is gratifying. And as you can see, the blue line, we've remained, reasonably stable and solvent in the face of a very troublesome economic climate and user acquisition environment. So I'm going to talk a lot about funnel in this presentation. This is Zoe Keating, the music now. Zoe is a wonderful cellist who loops herself over and over. Anyway, the funnel for Puzzle Pirates is grim. So user acquisition funnel is a key part of your business analytics. If you're building any kind of online game, you're going to want to look very closely at people coming in and where they bail out. Now, a little hard to read, you can probably read that, but you can see that starting on the right-hand side with new visitor, the key at the bottom, the green bar there is the people who show up at the website. And the way this graph works is, and a number of the graphs later that you're going to see, is the key matches the segment of the user population that hit that stage of the funnel and stayed there. So as you can see, about half of the people who show up at our website don't actually do anything at all. They don't click on anything, they don't start downloading Puzzle Pirates, they just kind of vanish. Maybe they're robots, maybe they just don't like pirates and don't like puzzles, even though they presumably clicked on something with puzzles and pirates in it to get there. The next stage is that they saw a page which we load in Flash showing the pirate creation page. So they've loaded up a page that says, create your pirate. This stage they've seen some of the artwork for the game, but the next stage down, the blue box, is that they started creating a pirate and then bailed. So you can see that people, once they start creating a pirate, do quite well. But again, a very large proportion of people do not get very far when it comes to making a pirate. Then you can see that not that many people failed creating a pirate. A fair chunk of people logged in, and then we actually on Puzzle Pirates let people log into the game before registering. So you start a character and you wander around the game, and at the end of your first session, we ask you, would you like to save your pirate? It's going to be really sad if you don't. And this, again, was a funnel optimization. We found that if we asked people to register up front, we lost more people than if we asked them to save at the end. And also, we created less bogus accounts of people who were never going to play it, actually kind of simplified the way we look at user acquisition. And you can't see the paid line because it's really tiny. Of the people who play Puzzle Pirates and create an account, about 5% convert into being customers. That's a good audience. A less good audience can be, so it's 1 to 5%, depending on where they come from and how we got them, demographics and so on. But you can't see that on this graph. What you can see is that approximately 3, something like that, % of the people who land at our webpage actually play the game and save an account. And you can imagine what this does to our ability to acquire customers. It is grim. Compare and contrast with some of the later graphs on Facebook. This is not a good slide, so I guess I was up late last night working on that one. World is a user-generated virtual world with Flash multiplayer games. We built this product, started about 4 years ago. We launched it last year. It is incredibly ambitious and complicated. If you go to world.com, you will witness how complicated it is because it's very hard to use. The problem we had with World was that we took a very ambitious vision. We executed on that vision. We wrote a lot of code. We made a lot of games, a lot of Flash multiplayer games particularly. We launched based on that vision, and the hypotheses that we had made about what would be successful were not correct. So one of our hypotheses, for example, was that people would prefer to play multiplayer Flash games to single-player Flash games. We also hypothesized that when we distributed these games out onto the global ethosphere of Flash games, that people would click through and come back to World and go, oh my God, it's a user-created virtual world with more games and accomplishments and all these other things, and stick around, which they did not. click through. And the ones that did not generally stick around. So we were sad, very, very sad. We also hypothesized that developers would make multiplayer Flash games with virtual currency, and they did not, by and large, but with some notable exceptions. And so, overall, this is going to come back later, we had a very salutary experience in building it and them not coming, building it to a vision that we had not confirmed until we'd spent $5 million and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm going to come back to this. Now, the nice thing about World, this is our average simultaneous user graph, and you can see that during last year we did quite a lot of customer acquisition activity. We saw some significant spikes in traffic with ad campaigns and game releases and so on. The number, though, the interesting part of it is we stopped promoting and working on World in July. And you see what happened there? It went flat. Now, going flat is okay if you're not doing any promotion. What didn't happen was it didn't fall off a cliff and go to zero. And so 6-9 months later, after basically sort of throwing our hands up and running away, we're now looking at something that may actually have potential, which is exciting. The other interesting graph here, this is World revenue and registration. So you can see here that the amount of money we're making per user, which are the bar chart side, actually going up consistently. We introduced a subscription plan last summer, and you can see that that's contributing a meaningful amount of revenue on top of what is virtual currency sales. And again, registrants has gone down to a point, but it's still, tracking along. Anyway, like I say, I like showing graphs and numbers. It's not strictly relevant to the thesis, so I'll plow through these. This is friending, again, the same pattern. This is discussions, again, kind of growing. So that's nice. I'm going to have some Bloody Mary now. Cheers. So we spent a lot of time making World, and we spent a lot of time making Bang Howdy, our previous game before that. And at the point where we hit our slough of despond last summer, we did not have very much money in the bank. We were losing money as a company. And we realized that we were basically 1 for 3 at this point. And a batting average for a game developer, 1 for 3 is not good. You can't really afford to be an independent game developer. Keep making your own games, keep funding them if you've had 1 success out of 3 games. So we sort of did a lot of soul searching, and at the same time, a new meme has been sort of emerging in the entrepreneurial community. And the best description of that is a lean startup. We call it also customer development is also a key part of this. Steve Blank is the guy who coined the term customer development. And then this guy, Eric Ries, has coined the term lean startup. Who's heard of this stuff? Okay. All right. I apologize to the people who have, but there's lots of people who haven't. So I'm going to explain what it is briefly. The basic idea, as you can see on the slide, is customer development is about actually talking and discovering what your customers want. Revolutionary idea, but guess what? You try and do it before you actually build the thing, which begins to sort of grate up against most game developers' idea of how the universe operates, but it's actually an incredibly powerful technique. There are a number of ways to try and confirm and verify your hypotheses. Some of them you can do with basically no R&D effort. Some of them require more R&D effort, and there's a gated process that I'll run through. The other key aspect to it is when you're talking about how you discover information about your customers, some of it is metrics and analytics, but some of it is literally calling them up and talking to them, which may, again, be a vaguely terrifying prospect. What is not really the most useful part of customer development, although you can use it, are focus groups, for example. This is not getting 5 people in a room and talking about a game idea and being like, do you think it would be cool if there were green aliens that you could blow up with a big red button? That's not really what customer development is about. It's more about asking a customer, for example, how do they relate to a product they're already using? What is the usage pattern for it? If that product were to change in some way, et cetera, et cetera. One of the key questions that people ask when they're trying to verify their customer acquisition hypothesis or the sort of stickiness and value of their product that they have if they have something existing is to ask their customers, how would you feel if this went away? Would you be really upset if this went away tomorrow? Or would you be like, I don't really care? And if half of the people who are using your product would be really upset, you probably have something that works. So there's tons of reading you can do. Go to startuplessonslearned.com, read everything that Eric's ever written. Kurt's nodding his head merrily down here. There's a big sort of dialogue going on Twitter and so on, all about this. For us, there are some other things that we are getting a benefit from here. So, we needed to decide how we invest in products and how we stage that. We also wanted to provide the team clear objectives to work towards, because we'd just done, not a death march because we don't roll like that, but we just done a long and arduous multi-year product development that had led to a failure that we didn't understand well. And a team, during that time, we'd had multiple occasions where we were like, do we keep going down this path? Do we change directions? And we made those decisions in a vacuum by basically what we call at Three Rings, HWFO, which is hand-waving freakoutery. The players actually coined the term, but anyway. So, we didn't want to make any more decisions by HWFO, and we wanted to give the team an idea like, okay, this is rationally how we're making a decision about whether this game is good, bad, ugly. So our CD process, as we call it for customer development, is a gated process. We go through a period of concept testing. The concept testing is brainstorming. Obviously, we think of wacky ideas and wave our hands a lot, but then we try and distill that down to some things that we can actually put up in the market and try. The way we've done that so far is to run ads on Facebook, actually not just on Facebook, but primarily for the concept testing. Look at how many people click through to these ads. So the last time we did this, we had 6 games, 6 ads, and 6 landing pages. What we measured was how many people clicked on the ads and how many people signed up on the landing pages. What we found was a 5x difference between the best concept and the worst concept. This made us very happy because we turned from having really no idea apart from our personal opinion on whether it was a good idea or not to actually having a definite signal from the market that one of these ideas was much better for user acquisition, or appeared to be much better for user acquisition than the others. And we went away and started making that game instead of the others. So, you can't do this with everything. And one of the issues we're having right now is how do you kind of take this similar process with, say, a game mechanic? How do you test that as early as possible? But by testing these ideas up front, we at least have a confident idea that we're going to be able to get some kind of decent funnel, or a better funnel than we might have done moving forward. The next thing we did is develop prototypes. That's pretty straightforward. But the goal of the prototype is not to test internally. It is to put out to the market and see if people will play the game. The thing we measure with a prototype is, do they come back? So it doesn't need depth. It just needs people to come back once. And that is the best metric that we've decided upon to decide whether someone actually liked your game or not. It's not perfect, but that's, of course, a hard thing to determine. You can listen to people's feedback, but, of course, people who have big mouths are going to love it or hate it. So just, do they come back? To give you range, Puzzle Pirates gets about 35% of people coming back after their first session, people who played the game. A new MMO that we're making, new casual MMO, got a similar kind of returning rate. But as you'll see in a minute, some of our Facebook games have gotten over 60% of people coming back after their first visit. So our range is kind of between 35 and 60-ish. If it's a lot below 30, we would have serious question marks about whether we were on the right track. We also look at the funnel a bit just to make sure, again, that our earlier hypotheses that people find this attractive, can get into the game, will get on. Then the MVP is an interesting concept, again, lean startup concept. The MVP is called for minimum viable product. So what is the smallest possible thing that you can test revenue against? What is the smallest game that you can put out to the market and really believe that you're going to learn whether this game can be successful before you start to continue to invest? Formally or not, most of the Facebook game companies are applying MVP. So Zynga releases, a smaller game as they think they can get away with. Usually they have a head start because they can just copy someone else's. And they can put that up. And, sorry, you have to get it in every now and then. And then iterate from there. So we try and get an MVP up. To give you an idea, we would hope an MVP to be like a 3-month kind of process for a Facebook game with 3, 4 people on the team, maybe 5. We have kind of not done that because we've been spreading ourselves a bit thin, but that's kind of the ballpark sort of effort. Then again, that is with, Ninja Rockstars, so, your mileage may vary. I'm sure it would go quicker. The next stage for us is customer acquisition. So can we get people to come in and play the game? And then can we get any money out of them? And so far, our experience has been that those sort of come a little bit after, but again, these are gates. So if we can get the game to be reasonably viral, we move on to monetization. If we can't get it to be reasonably viral, we stay in customer acquisition trying to work that out. If we can't work that out, then we would press the eject button and move along. Finally, operations, continued iteration, and just generally moving forward. We've now applied the operations part of this to all of our games, including Puzzle Pirates. So the Puzzle Pirates guys are on about 1 month, 6 week cycle of issuing new releases and measuring the behavior of the players against agreed metrics when they started that particular release cycle. On Facebook, it's more like a 3-day cycle quite often, but you can apply these across the board. All right, I'm going to talk quickly about our Facebook games. The first thing we did was World Games. So we took the World platform, we took the games sort of portal component of this, put it up on Facebook, basically seeing if we could make a mind jolt. We did not make a mind jolt. It was launched in mid-2009. It was not viral. We think that one of the things that grew mind jolt until recently anyway was notifications. And notifications were kind of burnt out, and now they're gone. We didn't feel like, in order to provide a great big flow of games, because we didn't have that many games on World, we pulled games from Mochi, and so we didn't feel like the offering was really that unique. They were kind of, the same games. We had other unique games, but mostly people were looking at the kind of the daily game thing. And the data was very noisy, so we built an existing tech platform, and that was turned out it was just very confusing to work out what was going on. So the second thing we built is Everything. Everything is a super simple collectible card game. You could again argue it's not really a game, because all you do is you flip cards and then you either keep them, sell them, give them away, and so on. The idea is that, as you can see the classification in the top right, the game is everything in it. And we pull a lot of the data from Wikipedia. As you see, the source there is from Wikipedia. Pull the images off the internet, very easy to make content. There's about 3,000 cards now, I think, in Everything. There's someone's fine collection of things. Basically, the sole gameplay element is just completing sets of things. It turns out this is very compelling for the absolutely tiny audience that we have playing it. This game was a hit in the office. Everyone loved it. And then it went to the first degree of friends, and since then has just kind of been gently grinding its way towards 1,000 daily active users. So, on the scale of things, this is not moving the dial, although actually it is generating, surprisingly, quite a bit of money. Those in the Facebook business will know that revenue per day, per daily active user, is a key metric. So the reason you use daily active users is there's too much noise in monthly active users. A lot of apps will churn through people very quickly. But daily active users is a good metric. You divide your money by the daily active users by the days, and for Everything making $800, wow, Jesus, in March, and having about 800 users, we're doing about $1 per average daily active user, which works out to what is that? Is that 5 cents, or no? It's more than that, isn't it? It's like 7 cents or something like that. Yeah. So I don't actually know that number for Everything, but it's good. This is up there. The farm games and pet games have been said to do about 1 cent per day, per daily active user on the low end of any kind of monetization. And on the high end, the Mafia games can go from 5 even to 10 cents per day, per daily active user, which becomes highly, highly lucrative. That would be 10 cents, as you can work it out, 30 days in the month. That's actually quite a lot of money for a Facebook game to get $3 per month per daily active user. So that's the summary there. The interesting thing also is that we built a new technology platform for this. So we have a very, very pared down technology platform, allows us to do things like very fast releases and candidate builds and so on. So we're not continuous deployment, which is one of the lean startup concepts, but we're kind of close to that. Okay, the next game we started was Bite Me. Bite Me is a vampire game. This is our new semi-pornographic splash screen. We put this in the funnel in order to see if Gwen Stefani being devoured at an orgy would raise the number of people who decided to play our game. The terrible truth was it did not. So I don't know what's wrong with kids these days. I mean, you can't get them to click through with that, I'm not sure. So Bite Me is actually at its core, or rather was, a combat game with sort of WoW-style fights. So you go on quests, you beat up monsters, you level up, you use special powers, etc. So has actual real battles where you make decisions and click buttons and things happen, which again is distinctive from most Facebook games in the kind of RPG genre. It's not clear to me that actually any of those things and all the vast effort on animation and so on really benefited the game's success, which is an unfortunate conclusion to draw. The thing that has a lot is adding this thrall mechanic. So these are cute mortal of the rather hot hipster variety who show up and want to be taken in and looked after and turned into vampires. And this mechanic, we were looking for our kind of little lost cow mechanic, a la Farmville. And so we have a little lost hottie who shows up, and you can't take her in because your apartment's full already of little lost hotties, and so you post her to your feed and someone else does. That's actually doing pretty well, and you can see they all are very demanding. They want presents, they want to be fed upon, they want to be fed your friends, etc., etc. And of course you get to have intimate moments with your desirable and devouring little friends. ByteMe has done reasonably well on user acquisition, so that is our curve. We peaked at about 70,000 daily active users, although this number is from Contagion, which is a viral and sort of Facebook analytics tool. It's not entirely super accurate. The number of people we see in the game sort of is a bit less than that. It doesn't have that quite the same spike. What you can see, however, is that we were doing pretty well at the beginning of the year, and since then we've been struggling to maintain a kind of 50,000 daily active users. It's about 500,000 monthly active users, to give you an idea, so about a 10%-ish ratio, which is okay, could be better for a Facebook game. The farm games do much better than that in terms of a ratio from monthly to daily. With this game, we started actually a year ago. We made it inside of World. It was not an asynchronous game. It was a synchronous multiplayer, hangout, chat, actually socialized game. We moved to Facebook in 2009. We blew away the World platform for this in about September, and we actually began testing it properly in October. We passed the initial returning test, and we got a pretty good K. K is viral coefficient. That's the number of people you get when a player is referred. The interesting thing about K, so 0.7 people show up from a new player, but it's compound. And so the actual number of people you get for each, say, paid acquisition is, with a K of 0.7, what is that? That's like 3, 4 for 1? Something like that. Yeah, it's about 3 for 1, or 4 to 1, 3.5, something like that. We actually passed monetization, particularly when we went to thralls. So we originally had a kind of action point thing, like most of the X-Force games. Then we put in thralls, and you have to feed them and look after them. And our monetization went from about 1.5 cents per daily active user per day to about 3 cents per daily active user per day. And since then, we've managed to get that up to about 4.5 cents. So you can see, again, we're doing that magic kind of about $1 per average daily active user per month. Which is, not bad. There's definitely a business there. However, it's not growing gangbusters, and we're not sure whether that's because it is a inherently non-viral genre, because vampires, funnily enough, only appeal to a segment of the population. Teenage girls seem to be very enthusiastic about ByteMe. It may have something to do with our Twilight-themed ads, but the game, basically, we don't know at this point. And one of the things about being metrics-driven and kind of analytic in your decision-making is that you may have to decide to kill things that you've put a lot of work into. Obviously, when I say kill, we're not going to shut the game down. But the question is, do we continue to put a lot of work into the game or not? Or do we do something else? So something else would be, for example, Puzzle Pirates Treasure. Puzzle Pirates Treasure is a easy, super simple introduction to Puzzle Pirates. We started this again in about October. We did not do a whole lot of upfront testing on this because we knew we wanted to make a Puzzle Pirates game and we didn't really care how it tested. We did some, and it actually didn't test as well as some other concepts, but we have an incredible MMO to send people to. So in some ways, this is an experiment to see if we can make a simple viral game on Facebook and pass people over into an MMO and make money. We are actually doing pretty well with customer acquisition on Facebook to Puzzle Pirates. So when this game rolls out, we hope that it will be an engine of driving traffic. The interesting thing here is we can use the incentivized offers that are common. So, sign up for Netflix and get some shinies in the game. We intend to use that. Go to Puzzle Pirates and play Puzzle Pirates for half an hour, and we'll give you coins in Puzzle Pirates Treasure. And so we can kind of hopefully get people to actually try the main game. Interesting graph here is funnel. So this is the returning funnel. The yellow bar are the number of people who returned. Now, you remember the Puzzle Pirates graph? You remember how impossible it was to get people to even play the damn game? On Puzzle Pirates Treasure here, we see people arriving, we see them going through the creation process, see them playing a puzzle, and originally we had a much more complicated puzzle and it was harder to play and we were losing people in the middle there. We simplified that, it went up again, but look at the returning number. Over 50% of people who begin to even have an experience with this game, who click on anything, come back. And so, we're well over an order of magnitude there in terms of our, basically potential for a performant growth user base. So we're finishing it off, and we hope to launch it, and hopefully that will be the big win. The next game we are working on is Downtown. Downtown is our entry to the, suddenly in the last 3 weeks, hotly contested urban sim genre. Is that fair? Yeah, genre. We started this game when we did the ad tests. This was the concept that tested 5x on everything else. As you can see, it's super cute. We're not making a SimCity clone or a SimCity light. Downtown is much more about your street. And furthermore, inside of the buildings on your street, which you can buy and upgrade and build up and so on, are little shops, and you run little shops, and they're very cute, and the big-headed guys bobble about and buy things. So this has a lot of the game mechanics of some of the sim games, particularly some of the farming games, but transposes it to a different setting. So you can see the kind of oblique innovation that we're taking here. We tested this, as I say. It was great. It beat an alternative name very well, so we know the name is good. And off we go to the races. Hopefully we'll launch this before the urban sim genre has blown past and disappeared. But frankly, I'm not concerned about competing with, say, Social City, because this is just such a different looking and feeling game. All right, so I don't have a lot to say here. Obviously, these games are really, really, really simple. And I think I can't sort of stress that enough as a game developer. We've made complicated things for years, and to actually get to a discipline of striving for simplicity has been a great thing for us. We have not done a great job of this, but the social object, I think, is a very interesting concept. And I think the games that are going to succeed going forward on Facebook are going to be built more around the thing that you and your friends are interested in, and cute kind of wins. The metrics we've seen, so Google Analytics was sort of useful at the beginning. Contagion is a very useful tool. It's also free, so you can you try it out, and then there's a pro version if you want to upgrade. We built a very complicated metrics tool called Panopticon a few years ago for World, and we've deployed this on the Facebook games, and it's very useful, but it was an enormous investment. I would discourage you from building your own metrics. Most of what Panopticon does can now be done with Contagion. And there are other tools out there that I've not used that I'm sure can do similar things. Building metrics tools is a double-edged sword. In some ways, it's good to get in there and understand everything, but if you can just get away with simple database queries and third-party apps, then I would do it. The key metrics are you do need to understand the funnel, because otherwise you're just working in the dark. Cohort metrics for returning retention. A cohort is like a group of people who show up at a particular time. It's no good looking at your aggregate metrics overall. You have to be looking at, these guys showed up on this day, they had this experience, and then they paid us this much money, they stuck around this long, etc. Because that behavior changes very radically as you move the game around, as you hopefully iterate rapidly. And then looking at the actions and so on. This is all sort of pretty straightforward stuff. The tech lessons that we've had remove the complex framework. Except that the games are write heavy, and we use Amazon S3 and EC2. Do not bother buying servers in this day and age. All right, I've got to run, and I will try not to talk fast. But the things I wanted to say here can actually be found on my blog. So if you go to thefloggingwillcontinue.com, I wrote a post just in the new year talking about my sort of predictions for 2010. And I still kind of think they're pretty accurate. I guess some of the key things I think about Facebook now are that it is still by far and away the best opportunity for a independent and therefore larger game developer to reach market in a swift, sustainable, and broad sense. The audience, though, and the market is not it's not wide open in the sense that some things, there's the audience that is playing games on Facebook is somewhat specialized. There are obviously niches there, but it's not yet clear how successful a niche strategy will be. That's kind of what we're hoping in some ways. Downtown is possibly our most mass market thing, but the things we're looking at in the future are probably going to be slightly more niche. It's not clear that that's the right move or not. I think, though, that the days of pure viral growth are highly numbered. This is a common view. Facebook clearly has an interest in getting people to buy Facebook ads, so they've dialed down virality. They also have an interest in having a successful consumer experience for ordinary users and not being spammed the fuck out with crazy game stuff all the time. So they've dialed that down very deliberately. They're going to make more money that way. They're also going to, I believe, mandate Facebook credits this year, which I think will be a net benefit, but will cost 30% on your kind of net margin in return for that benefit. So I think there's some interesting challenges there. For a small developer, I think these are navigable, providing that your expectations are not super high. And I think for the large guys, it may be either business as usual in some sense or extremely disruptive. So I'm not necessarily convinced that the path forward for the market leaders now, who've done an amazing job of securing a very strong position, Zynga particularly, I'm not sure that it's clear that they're going to be able to maintain that, or that necessarily it's going to be the 60% net margin, that's a guess by the way, business that it is now. I think it'll probably be more like a 20% net margin business by the end of the year, which I'm sure will come with some disruption. Again, I probably have to not waffle too much about this. So Jesse Schell did a talk a little while ago at DICE, and there's a meme now. I think the new hot thing is sort of pervasive gaming, and the idea that gaming is going to infiltrate your life. If there's a trend after social, then it's this sort of Foursquare meets sort of augmented reality idea. And I think social games are interesting there because the play pattern is very pervasive. People are coming to their Facebook multiple times a day. They're coming back to the game. They're doing small actions. They're going away. The game sessions are very short and so on. And so there's obviously a sort of ambient gaming sort of connection there. I think that with that comes lots of opportunity. I also think it's kind of scary, particularly when you look at the types of reinforcement that people are using. I mean, I don't use B.F. Skinner's name in vain. There is a degree of psychological manipulation going on in social games which is impressive. And I'm not sure that that's it makes me ethically uncomfortable. I don't have, much like capitalism in some ways makes me ethically uncomfortable in its red tooth and claw form, I think game design in red in tooth and claw is actually a very powerful sort of socio-psychological construct. I've always thought that MMOs would be kind of the long dark tunnel that humanity might disappear into and sort of plug themselves into the matrix or whatever and become vestigial bodies attached to the interwaves. I sort of see signs that the direction that goes in is even more profound when you apply these very metrics-oriented techniques. When you're being so aggressive about working out through, both primarily just through observing player behavior, and you can move so fast, and do so many tests. I think you can do very kind of scary things. So I worry about this. Maybe we can talk about it after if you're interested. Okay. I would like to bring our special guest number one, Mr. David Kaye. We're going to flip over to his deck. Thanks. Let me just hop over to, here we go. Rock and roll, you have to press the button, I'm afraid.
Which button? This button?
Yeah, any of that button.
Any of the big buttons?
Any of the big buttons, yeah.
Oh. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm David. I'm responsible for business development at Meteor Games. Okay, cool. So yeah, just a couple of words about us. We've been around for about 2.5 years now. We were founded by Adam and Donna Powell, who are probably best known for making Neopets. I think as was the case with Dan, we started off doing something rather different. We were making a full 3D browser-based MMO called Twin Skies. And we also pivoted. And really that was a result of several things. MMOs are very expensive to make, and the collapse of the global economy was a little troubling. So for many of the reasons that Dan's already done a great job of articulating, we decided that we wanted to take a little bit of a lower risk strategy and take a broader portfolio approach. And so we completely restructured the company in early 2009 to focus on social games. That's worked out pretty well so far. Actually, that's slightly out of date. We're now at about 8 million monthly actives and still hovering somewhere around 2 million daily actives. And we're making money, which is nice. So yeah, Island Paradise was actually our fourth game. We sometimes talk about it as our debut game, but it was really our first successful game. We made three failed games before that. And it was definitely, it took us the best part of a year to really get our heads around how different it is making games on the Facebook platform for the Facebook audience. The game that preceded Island Paradise was an RPG called Vikings, Pirates, Ninjas. And we had the crazy idea that what we were going to do was we were going to have a game that you could play both on Facebook and on a destination site. And one of the things that was such a stark realization for us is just how different the behaviors were between the destination site, which you registered with a register now button and all the rest of it, and in Facebook. So we had on the destination site probably 5,000 super hardcore players who are coming back playing hours and hours and hours every day and spending several dollars a month, which was great if we'd been able to scale it. On Facebook, players would show up and just leave because the game was just too complicated for them. And so, obviously, we decided to focus on the Facebook audience because it was such a large market. And we started developing Island Paradise in about May, June of 2009. And our goal with Island Paradise was, this was pre-Farmville, but it was still pretty obvious that farming was going to be a pretty compelling gameplay genre. But we wanted to differentiate ourselves, so we added palm trees. And we relocated it and we called it Island Paradise. When we launched the game, it was really a very, very basic farming game. As you can sort of see today, we've layered in a lot more content, and also it's still not a complex game mechanically, but we have some stuff that you don't see in some of the other farming games. You can go fishing, you can do cooking by assembling different recipes and things like that. So it's still, by no stretch of the imagination, a complex game, but it's certainly more complex than it was, and we found that has helped us retain our users. Right now we're about 8 million monthly actives, 7.5 million monthly actives on Island Paradise, and that's of a total of about 10 million registered. So our retention, after 6 months, it's not too bad. Okay, so what I want to do here is just share 3 things that worked and 1 or 2 things that didn't work. And how many people out here are actually making a social game right now? Okay, so about half of you. So I just want to share with you some stuff that we learned, and some of it may be pretty obvious. Some of it was only obvious to us after we'd actually tested it. First thing I want to talk about is virality of feed posts. So actually, our lost dog is you might be the Zynga lost cow is pretty famous, even iconic at this point. But this actually mechanically works rather differently. So the way that the lost dog mechanic works is you show up on your island one day, and we pop up a little message saying that you've lost your dog, and you need your friends to help you out and find it. And so the way that works is if 10 friends click on your feed post, then you find your dog and you have a nice cute dog running around your island. And cute is definitely a huge motivator. So this is our best performing feed post ever. This is over a period, I think this is since the start of the year, because this mechanic is still in the game. So we've sent, going on for 4 million feed posts published, and out of that we've had 91,000 people create, and which kind of backs out to a 2.32% conversion rate, which by our standards, that's been a pretty strong conversion rate. Facebook doesn't actually penalize you too much for publishing a lot more than that, but I think that if I had to guess, that increasingly that's really you're going to really want to focus on feed posts that have very, very high click-through rates, posts that people are also going to like and comment on, and constructing things that fulfill all those criteria isn't super easy. So why this worked? Basically, this was looking at it in the context of everything else that we did. It was, I suppose, in some ways, a bit of a perfect storm of the evil techniques. Oh, sorry. So unlocking, basically, it worked because from a feed poster's perspective, it unlocked new content. Also played on emotional feelings of guilt. There was an incentive for the users to click because you got an experience reward for doing so, and it was also comprehensible to a non-player. Everyone knows about losing a dog. So this is our least successful feed post. It's actually one of a series of feed posts tied into our cooking mechanic. And so what we started out doing was, in order to unlock recipes, you needed your friends to basically help you out by basically clicking on this stuff. About 4 million sent, but only 35,000 creations and 0.86% conversion, which is really not great. Very strong incentive for the poster because, again, it's you're unlocking content, but really no incentive for the friend. Also, there's no emotional content there. It's kind of boring and sort of irrelevant if you don't play the game because, someone's cooking in some game I don't care about. So, whatever. Okay, so that's the feed posts. I'm going to talk about pricing, and this may be really obvious to many of you, but I'll just run through it anyway. One thing that we started testing, I think it was late last year, was the difference between we used to price all of our premium items. This is the premium currency that we have here, pretty much at parity. So we did a test where we maintained this pricing, but then we also upped the price on one of them, and to see what impact that had. And what we found is actually we sold more of the cheaper item, which was obviously the same price, but was cheaper by comparison when we introduced the relative pricing. And of course, we also raised our ARPUs because we did still sell some of the more expensive ones, but we found that the major benefit was coming from the fact that people were making a comparison between the two and opting accordingly. I mean, this is obviously a pretty common sale tactic from retail, but testing it in the game was pretty interesting to us anyway. And then finally, I want to talk about freebies. So it's pretty important on Facebook to get as many fans as you can because then when you post updates, it appears in people's news feeds. So we gave away 200 Meteor credits so we are going to give these away to celebrate when we reach 1 million fans. So we hit 1 million fans, and we gave out all these Meteor credits, and you can see our revenue really started spiking at the start of the giveaway because we gave them some Meteor credits, and they were like, oh, well, I might as well buy some more Meteor credits, and which was kind of the we were expecting and hoping for. So this is the period in which the stuff was redeemed, and then you can see it starting to tail off again. But then we started spiking again, and we couldn't really figure out why. And we realized why. It was because we'd completely screwed up, and we had a bug. It was randomly selecting players and giving them the bonus several times over. And you would expect that this would have a sort of negative consequence, but actually what we found was it was the complete reverse. So I think what we took away from this is first of all, sort of generosity is usually a net gain with this sort of thing. And we also think actually that the randomness of it was actually more beneficial than telling everyone ahead of time, hey, we're going to do this, because people were logging in and saying, oh, I wonder if I've gotten the crazy mysterious bonus that was actually a complete bug. So that's all. It's just 3 things. Hope it was useful, and happy to answer any questions you have. Can we sit here? Okay.
So, my name is Kurt Barrington. I'm definitely part of a smaller outfit than both Daniel and David. So I'll speak for the small guys, and I'll speak very quickly because I know we're running out of time here. a lot of what Daniel said really resonated with us. So our company is called ZipZap Play. You may know us as Playcrafter. It is basically a standalone site that you can make your own Flash games on. We launched it a year and a half ago almost, and in terms of traffic, it actually did all right, but in terms of revenue, not so much. There's a small but dedicated following, and 75,000 games have been made with the site. Some of the better ones have been played millions of times. We believed in Playcrafter, much like Daniel believed in World, and we were very sad to see the dollars not start rolling in. But I think probably the most critical mistake, to go back to what Daniel was saying, is it took us a long time to launch it, actually a year almost to launch it, from when we first sort of had figured out the concept. And then we iterated on it for a very long time before we finally decided, okay, things are not working out as well as we'd like. So summary was, it was a design success. It won an award at the Makers Faire, and our users who actually use it are fanatical, and they come back. A retention for that small percentage is extremely high. We have people who've been with us, a significant percentage of people who've been with us since the launch of the site. However, they're not pulling out the dollars, and that's partially sort of an age-related question as well, because they tend to be younger players. And in general, I have that opinion about a lot of the Flash gaming space now. But one thing I've heard other people say is, this is my experience, and people tend to give advice that is an overgeneralization of their own personal experience. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but this is something we learned over a very long and potentially very painful lesson. So I summarize this as we shot very slowly, and we aimed in the wrong direction, and it took us a long time to figure out that we had missed what was an actual business opportunity. All right, so famous pivot, things aren't working out. Let's just make something and put it on Facebook. We know Flash. We built this game in 6 weeks. You can decorate your ship. You've got the classic friend bar. You can sail to other islands. The sailing takes real time. There's trading mechanics, just like Taipan. We built it in 6 weeks. The numbers were already better than what we were seeing on Playcrafter in terms of getting people down through the funnel. But one thing we learned was to kill things fast. And fast is now relative. We killed this about a month after launch. And knowing what I know now, I would have killed it sooner. So in this particular case, I would summarize by saying we shot faster, but we still aimed slightly in the wrong direction. And then more recently, Happy Habitat was this relative success. So it's been live about 2 months now. It's not a major success on Facebook, but it's got around 65,000 daily actives and about 500,000 monthly actives. And it actually makes us some reasonable amount of money. So what I can say is that even if you're a really small team, so there's only 5 of us and a half contractor, so even a small team can make these kinds of things, and you can make them quickly if you set your mind to it. A lot of what we learned on Playcrafter was actually making things very quickly as well. So Happy Habitat we built in 4.5 weeks, and we've sort of been holding on to it. But I would say, even though that it's a relative success, it's not Island Paradise or Farmville by any stretch of the imagination. But what we did learn was to launch early using the concept of minimum viable product. And I'm getting a big time signal from back there, so I will get you at least a few metrics while I'm up here. So Daniel said simple a whole bunch of times. I would say, importantly, so Happy Habitat has about 70% women, 30% guys. Play through the top 100 games on Facebook. You'll notice that most of them, not all of them, most of them target a more female or gender inclusive, at least, audience. And there's something to be said there, I think, as well. And in general, sort of this snack gaming concept where it's a small few minutes of play and then come back the next day. If you look at Farmville and then how Zynga took that sort of appointment-based mechanic and they copied that into a bunch of different games, slight variations definitely, but that appointment-based mechanic is very successful in bringing people back, and so there's something to be learned there. So this is my last slide, so I know the time's almost up, and I get thumbs up from the GDC people there. So I very much believe in this concept of a minimum viable product at this point. Do not spend a year building something, launch it, and then realize a few months later that it doesn't make any money. You will be sad. Your design principles will be intact, maybe because you created this thing that you believed in your heart was great. After we got stomped on more than I would like to say, we've changed that mindset. Launch early, launch fast. In Happy Habitat, we had 5 animals. We had a tutorial that sucked. To give you a couple more metrics, we were losing 50% of the people who started the tutorial to making it to the end. We switched the tutorial to what it is now. Now it's at around 83% completion. Another metric, your mileage may vary. We see about half the people just don't even click past the allow application button. So tests that put something interesting before that button, probably a good idea. I can talk about all these all day long. One thing I will say about retention and monetization and virality is try a few games. Don't bet everything on one game, because if you don't have any metrics to compare it with, you just don't know if you've got anything that's any good. The reason we killed Cat's Cove so quickly was because we were getting close to the edge of end of money. And I think you'll find that you move faster when you are more desperate and clawing for the edge. But fortunately, Happy Habitat, we're not all the way out yet, but we're actually much, much happier. And we think we figured out a few things in terms of what actually works. So cute, simple, appointment mechanics. One last thing I will say about the split test we ran is read up a little bit on statistics, because if you have 1,000 people come on one side of the test where you're paying half the amount of hard currency for an item, and you make $1,000 on one side and $1,100 on the other side, that doesn't mean that one of those is the winner. I'll just say, like, buzzwords, t-tests, and enough understanding the variance of those metrics. Don't make the wrong call too early, basically. And that's it.
I have a couple of there you go. I have a couple of housekeeping things. So there we go. Thank you for coming. We don't have time for formal questions, but I tell you what, I think we're allowed to stay in the room. So if you want to go, by all means, head off, and thank you again. If you'd like to ask a few questions, I'm going to hang out for a bit. I think we can still use the audio for 5 minutes. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay, we've got audio for 5 minutes. Who would like to ask a quick question? No takers. Must be too early. Yes, sir. Where do you go for good reference on statistics?
I spent 2 days figuring this out. There aren't very good references. If you don't know anything about statistics, there's a really great book called The Cartoon Guide to Statistics, and that's probably the best refresher course you're going to get. And then you can look online for split tests and A/B tests. There's some stuff there, but find somebody who knows stats. But the short answer was analysis of variance and t-tests are sort of what you want.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got one. Hey, there's a million payment providers out there. Which ones do you guys use, and who do you like? And how invested do you want to get if Facebook's going to require Facebook credits and nothing else soon?
I wouldn't get invested at all. Question about payment providers, and I don't think there's a tremendous differentiation. And credit card is the vast majority of our valuable custom. So I'd implement the simple thing now and see where the market goes. Social Gold or something might be good if you like those guys. But there are lots of providers, and I don't think there's a lot of differentiation. So.
Cohort metrics. So how do you figure out who the, when you're looking at your statistics, what the groups are? It's like time of the day of the week.
We just do most of it by when they arrived. So we might look at a weekly cohort, we might look at a monthly cohort, we might look at daily cohorts. It just, depends on what you're trying to find out. So when we're trying to get granularity on like this group of, are we seeing massive daily attrition, then we'll look at a daily cohort and a daily retention graph. But if we're looking at, sort of a broadest trend, then we might look at weekly or monthly.
So
and splitting them by demographics and so on would be great. I mean, we haven't done a lot of that, but have you guys done that? Like demographic cohorts or anything like that?
We always do it by time.
Yeah, by time, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty. Thanks, folks. Thanks for coming in. 9 a.m. Please thank the barman.